All right, we are live. Welcome to a Maize and Brew six-pack. I am Jared Stormer of the Block M Podcast Network and maizeandbrew.com. With me, as always, Andy Bailey, my hetero life mate. Andy Bailey, a man that many people forget, actually won the first America's Got Talent for his podcasting prowess. But I don't forget. Happy to have you here, my friend. How are we?
I'm good, man. I'm not going to lie. I actually took an ice bath right before this podcast. Got to get in the mentality. It's big game week, so I'm ready to go.
I love you're out there hitting sleds. You're out there doing two-a-days, getting the ice baths. Like, you need to be as in this as possible, in the trenches with the lads.
I have to get ready to drink like Bloody Marys in each hand on Saturday. I got to be ready for this.
Just imagining like some epic ones. Just
Chariots of Fire soundtrack behind me.
Yeah. just sloppily drinking up at the bar at the Applebee's. I can't wait, man. This is going to be a hell of a Saturday, and we are breaking it down. The Michigan versus Texas game. Felt that this one deserved its own podcast, its own video, in the sense that this is like as good as it gets. I mean, as far as just brand names, A+, venue, A++, stakes, like this is a hugely, massively important game. A++.
Kickoff time, noon.
Kickoff. As the Lord intended, thank goodness. Yeah, man, it's everything you could want. Maybe it doesn't have that quarterback versus quarterback battle, but there's that Quinn Ewers there versus that Michigan defense, which I think is just one of the best matchups of the week. Their offensive line, potentially one of the best in the country versus the best defensive line in the country. There's just a ton to like about this matchup, man. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Texas offense. I feel like that's really been dominating the discourse leading into this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Texas offense looked 52-0 last week versus Colorado State. To put things into context, Colorado State was near the bottom of the Mountain West last year, though. This is a team that went 3-5 in conference. They were just behind the mighty Hawaii. I don't even remember the name of the Hawaii. It's like the Aztec
the
Warriors.
Rainbow Warriors.
Rainbow Warrior. Yep, that's what it is. The Rainbow Warriors. So they finished behind Hawaii in the Mountain West. So let's not read too much into the 52-0 drubbing of Colorado State. I think Michigan would have drubbed a similar opponent. Fresno State would roll over Colorado State. We agree, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are tackling atheists. I watched that game and they just don't believe in it. They were just not trying at times. They were taking horrible angles. You could tell just the speed difference in this game. Texas offensively looked like a well-oiled machine, but going against Colorado State, I think Michigan would have looked like a well-oiled machine offensively.
Yeah, they don't believe in tackling like we don't believe in skim milk. There are certain things that just that men do and do not do. Yeah, so this offense coming off of last year, we won't look too much into the Colorado State game, but this was a really good offense last year. They obviously lost Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, but they bring back Jadon Blue. They get some transfers in, including Isaiah Bond from Alabama, the tight end as well, Mari Nyblack, also from Alabama. So there's definitely some weapons there. They were number 25 in rushing offense, number 17 in passing last year, and behind an offensive line that brings 4 of 5 back. So it's certainly like a really good group on offense when you look at the personnel, but they've never had to come up against a defense like this.
No, they still have to replace their top 5 pass catchers last year, their top 2 rushers, because their second running back, I believe it was CJ Baxter, got injured in fall camp, so he's out for the season. So some skill positions to really answer. They got their feet wet last week against an inferior opponent. But to me, man, their offense really comes down to head coach Steve Sarkisian for me. So Sark, as everybody knows, likes to script as many plays as possible. I've heard tales and anecdotes of upward to 40, which just seems kind of ridiculous. Yeah, like he likes to play at his own tempo, and sometimes he coaches like he's playing video games and escapes just play calling fundamentals. But in this one, Sark is going to try to work that soft spot between DBs and linebackers, and similar to Washington, he wants to get players running side to side before taking a shot over the top. We're going to see a heavy rotation of RPOs, screens, and shot plays called, like kind of in that order. And with the running backs that they have, you mentioned Jadon Blue, they are deadly out of the black backfield, and Ewers will check down without hesitation. So this is going to be a big test for the Michigan linebackers and really a big test of their discipline.
Real quick, shout out to Tyler Turner joining us live. Appreciate you, sir. Much love to you guys that are all able to join us live. This will go up after this as well, so you'll be able to check this out on YouTube and the podcast version. Agree with everything you said, man. You were telling me about what Vance Bedford was saying about the Sarkisian offense and that, like, he's maybe a little overrated as a play caller. I don't like the 40 scripted plays in the sense that, like, you and I, we like a night on the town, go out, get stuck in the pints, as it were. You have an initial plan, but things can go awry very quickly, as we've seen. Like, all of a sudden you steal a man's drink off the table and you know, your knuckles up. You got to be prepared for that, and not having a plan for whatever's coming next. That didn't actually happen, but nonetheless, it's going to happen against Texas. Like, you're going to have this perfectly scripted plan, and then you're going to run up against Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham and Will Johnson and guys flying downhill. You were mentioning wanting to hit those running backs out of the backfield. The last couple of years, that has not really been an effective strategy for Michigan because they move downhill very quickly. Their safeties, their linebackers, and after what we saw from Barham last week, that is the last thing that I would want. Like, if I'm a running back, to catch that, have to get my body squared up and see that behemoth, that absolute just predator of a human being coming downhill at that kind of speed with that kind of size. So it's going to be extremely physical for these running backs. It's going to be extremely physical for Quinn Ewers behind that offensive line we were mentioning. Can they keep him upright all day long? Because, I mean, we're going to be leaning on him, and he's not going to have nearly the time to throw that he did against Colorado State.
The key battle of the game to me is the offense, Texas's offensive line versus Michigan's defensive line.
Facts.
I mean,
100%.
Strength on strength. This Texas offensive line is massive. Their left tackle, Kelvin Banks, is one of the top 2 tackles in the country. And he and Josiah Stewart are going to be one-on-one pretty much the entire game, because I anticipate them doubling Mason Graham, which is normally next to him. So that's going to single him up on the outside. And watching Stewart's speed-strength combo against Banks, who is powerful, but he's not super quick. So I'm really fascinated to see how that works out. And that can change the complexion of a game, because you start getting back there, you disrupt rhythm, you speed up RPOs, you speed up decision-making processes. And then Quinn Ewers has never finished a full season. So if you hit him a couple times, maybe some flashbacks set in, maybe some physicality takes over and really starts to dictate what they can and cannot do offensively.
Yeah, and if Kenneth Grant hits you, you're going to have Vietnam flashbacks.
Good
you're going to be having flashbacks to a war you didn't even fight in. Just a nightmare scenario. So, yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. As far as their passing game as well, Quinn Ewers, you know, like we mentioned, loses Worthy, loses A.D. Mitchell, brings in Isaiah Bond, and then the other receiver that he was really getting the ball to well last week was Ryan Wingo. I don't know that there's a giant drop-off between Bond and Wingo in the sense that you have to lock Will Johnson into one of these guys. So does that mean we could potentially see Will Johnson moving around a little bit?
I think so. I think you're going to see you're going to see so many different looks in this game defensively. Similar to the Washington game last year, you're going to see a lot of coverages. You're going to see a mix of man and zone. You're going to see Will Johnson looking to make his money. I believe last year against Alabama, when Isaiah Bond was on Alabama, he was primarily on Jermaine Burton. So, but they moved him around because you saw Josh Wallace on him late in the overtime to make that key tackle to set up, I believe, 4th down. So you're going to see him mixed around in this game a lot. But the one thing with these receivers to watch, I can bet your sweet ass we're going to see a bevy of double moves and several versions of fake screenshots in this game, just to test them after last week, seeing Will Johnson get a little aggressive, get victimized a little bit on one, and then jump that screen. I think you're going to have to be very disciplined in this game in the secondary.
Which I have full faith that Will Johnson will remedy that, what he was doing last week. I think Will Johnson was a little bored in last week.
I think honestly, the negativity surrounding his performance, quote unquote negativity, is vastly overblown, to be honest. Going back and rewatching it, it's like, okay, you gave up a slot fade and you gambled twice. Star players like to gamble because they like to make plays sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, I would take those gambles and the almost touchdown that didn't end up being a touchdown. For
almost is the key word there.
Yeah, only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So I agree with you there. I didn't think it was a terrible performance like some people were saying. He did like just look a little like maybe bored, though, in the sense that he's like, yeah, I'm going to come out here and try some things. Yeah. That's more what I mean with that. But against Texas, I expect a locked in Will Johnson. I expect Makari Page to be locked in. Jair Hill is going to be huge in this game. Like we saw him last weekend, looked great as a tackler. Certainly was there where he needed to be in coverage, but now it's going to be the nuances. Can you get your head around? Can you stick to a receiver? Can you stay disciplined on those double moves and such as well. So very interested to see how Jair Hill handles this going up against a dramatic leap in competition as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how the newbies react to this, how the rotation works. Some of those younger guys are younger in terms of experience, like Jimmy Rolder, Zeke Berry, players like that. I mean, this is a big jump up in competition. And while Michigan has several players with championship level experience, not everybody does. So they're going to have to be ready for this one. They're going to have to be communicating on point with everything. So a fascinating matchup. I mean, front to back in this one.
100%, man. Is it as simple as our incredible defense needs to be that much better than their awesome offense? Like, I mean, however you want to quantify that, does that mean this defense needs to just play one of its best games? Does it need to have like a number in mind, like over 20 doesn't get it done? Like, because I do think if you hold this team to like 17 points, we will win this game.
I think it comes down to the Michigan offense and how much they have this defense on the field.
All right, then let's make that move. Let's switch over to the Michigan offense. I think that's probably where most Michigan fans left last week, maybe wanting a little bit. Maybe I won't say like a bad taste in your mouth, because we did have that key drive when we needed it, where we were able to move the ball down the field. And then obviously the Will Johnson pick six doesn't really reflect on the offense, but nonetheless, it helped make the score look a little bit better. So another week of Davis Warren in practice, but a week knowing he's the starting quarterback, where that battle was still going on up until week one. So I think that will benefit him. Does Kalel Mullings maybe get the bulk of the carry? Something we've talked about on our podcast in the past, including last week. But I think the more important thing isn't necessarily who's getting the carries. It's just, can this offense get into a rhythm against this Texas defense, however that looks?
I'm fascinated to watch the offensive line in this one. Like last week, we saw some growing pains, but then you saw them settle in and start moving people on that final scoring drive of the game. They looked like the Michigan offensive line of old. And as you build that chemistry, I think we'll continue to see it. And against Texas, this is a team replacing two All-American tackles and a two-time first-team all-conference middle linebacker. And that was key to them having, what was their rush defense last year? It was an elite rush defense last year. I have the statistics in front of me, but how do they replace that? Yeah. So how do they replace that and overcome it, especially when this defensive coordinator loves to play cover two? So unlike Fresno State, you're not going to see the 4 and then bringing an extra defender in the box. You're going to see them want to keep 2 back and try to take away explosives. So that schematic chess match is going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and as far as players, Dom Gadis, fun name to say, wasn't exactly fun to watch, at least in the first half of last week. Can Dom Gadis be better in this game? Is it Dom Gadis, or do we get Crippen minutes in this one? So, I mean, I'll be eyes locked into the center position. If it's not the most important position on the offensive line, it's second. I do feel good about our tackles, though. So our ability to run behind, I think you'll see more of that in this one, particularly behind Miles Hinton. So running to the left, I think could be a strength for this team. As you mentioned, you are a number 3 rush defense last year is Texas, and you lose a lot of what made you the rush defense. They still have Anthony Hill, their leading tackler, the linebacker, so he'll be a big part of this. He's going to have his hands full with the Mullings and Donovan Edwards rushing attack. Also heard Alford say this week that they want to get Benjamin Hall and Jordan Marshall into this game, and they're kind of bummed that they didn't get him into last week's game. And look, you and I are foaming at the mouth, ready for some Jordan Marshall minutes. So, I mean, it's borderline unhealthy. So I'd love to see that, but it's got to make sense schematically and with the timing of the game, and getting a rhythm going for one of these backs is going to be key, whoever that is.
The battle with the running back, especially like Donovan Edwards in space as a receiver against Anthony Hill, I am so excited to watch. Hill, a true sophomore, was Will linebacker last year, so taking over the mic and wearing the green dot this year. How does he handle everything with this Michigan offense? How does he make the calls? How does he play in space? How does he hold up against the run? Just a myriad of questions surrounding what he's going to be able to do and how Michigan's going to try to put him in conflict. And I think we were smart to start with the offensive line, because if they perform well, then you can assume the run will perform well, which will help Davis Warren perform well by easing some of the burden off his shoulders.
Yeah, and this is a side point, not like one of the major points, but having the green dot, that means he's taking helmet communications, right?
Correct. Yeah,
It's going to be loud in the big house. And this is a true sophomore coming into the big house, one of the loudest stadiums in the country. It's going to be fired up, and Michigan likes to confuse you on offense. They like to set up with tendencies, as opposed to where Sark will script 40 plays. Michigan wants to set up and build for a play down the road. And like, it's going to put a lot of window dressing out there. I don't think they showed much last week at all against
Nothing.
Fresno State. So they're really going to try and confuse this defense, which is just replacing a lot of guys. So like, they've got to be locked in. As much as we're talking about how our defense needs to be locked in, like this Texas defense, I think it's really going to come down to like a couple plays and big plays in particular. So how dialed in are their safeties, like how that back line of defense, big game Dono, he's been big game Dono for us as long as he's been at Michigan. Well, this is as big as it gets. So I cannot wait to see what he's able to do in this one. And I hope that he's given some opportunities to get into that rhythm that we were talking about.
Yeah, and if Michigan, like this could be such a great game for Davis Warren, because the Texas secondary last year was number 116 against the pass, and that was with a defense that was also top 10 interceptions. So if they're not having that there, it's going to be fascinating to watch. And this is also a Texas pass rush that generated 0 sacks last week against Colorado State.
Yep, wanted to bring that up as well. Yep.
Yeah, it's like, so he's going to have some time. The UTSA transfer at edge is a player to watch. Trey Moore had 14 sacks last year, but was kind of missing absence, in the Colorado State game. So going to be interesting to watch there. But it's not like Michigan's offensive line is facing world beaters on the defensive line. Like, it's a good unit, but you're breaking in 2 new tackles and edges that just haven't been productive in the Bird Orange yet.
Yeah. So let me pose you this question. Is this the best offense we will face all year?
No.
Ohio State?
It might be USC.
Oh, wow. Already buying in. Oh,
it could be. It's between those two for offense. I'm not buying Oregon's offense, and Ohio State's offensive line still just left me with more questions than answers.
Okay. Next question. Is this a top 3 defense we will see all season? Is it in the top 3?
I think Ohio State's the best defense we'll see.
Correct. Oregon's probably second.
Are they, though? They just, I mean, they got run over a little bit by
on paper. Well, that's all we have so far.
They could be. They got run over a little bit by Idaho, though. Like,
I know. And look, we could not get aboard Washington last year because of the Arizona State game, and like it did turn out to just be a bump in the road. So it is just one performance.
Idaho's FCS, though. Arizona State is Pac-12. Like, and it was on the road, and this one was at home. I'll still say, yeah, it's a top 3 defense, just the way the schedule lines up.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So that's, that kind of shows you what we're at. This is maybe the hardest matchup we have outside of Ohio State then.
Yeah, I think it is, especially with the questions I have with Oregon's offensive tackles right now. They gave up 3 sacks in that game, and they gave up 5 all of last season. Alarming. Yeah. So I definitely think outside of Ohio State it is. But if Michigan wins this game, dude, it sets up a great rest of the schedule for them. Gives you the ability to drop 2 games and still feel great about getting in the playoff.
Let's talk briefly on special teams here, because I think this could be a massively important special teams day. Not just Dom Zavada, who is just quickly rising the ranks of people that I'm going to let marry my daughters one day. That guy, I don't have any daughters. That guy is just the man, and he will be counted on in this game. But also field position, I think, like the punt teams, punt return teams, it's going to be crucial. I think I'm envisioning a lower scoring game here. So those extra 10 yards that you get on a punt return, if you're Tyler Morris, that's 1 less first down that your offense has.
Great point.
Get. It just helps you so much. Like 8 yards, that extra 8 yards, whatever you can manage is going to be huge in this game. Penalties as well, particularly I'm watching the offensive line, like Dom Gadis and Evan Link out there. It's a new group, communication. It's going to be loud in there. Hopefully Michigan fans are smart fans. They'll know to keep it down when they're on offense, but penalties as well. Like, cause I think this is a game we've got to win in the margins, special teams and penalties.
It feels like a playoff game, doesn't it? Like, it's got to come down to all the small stuff. You got to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. I'm very thankful that Ryan Sanborn is gone, their star punter last year, who averaged 46 yards a punt. That's a nice relief. I didn't get their punter only kicked once last week. I didn't get a good look at him, but a new person in there. Doman will have to be on top of things, because I'm sure whoever they have now is still going to be rolling if we can force them to punt. Field goals feels very tight. It feels like 1 miss could swing this game. Their kicker last year, I believe, he only missed 1. burnt Auburn. He was 20 of 21 last season. So, but also this is the Texas team that will gamble inside the 5-yard line. It was against Oklahoma last year. They had 3 plays inside the 2 or 2 possessions inside the 5, and they didn't score any points. So you get him down there, it can get a little tight, and Sark's not afraid to roll the dice.
Right. And from Michigan's perspective, so do we basically just need to cross the 50 every time and Dom Zavada is good? Like how great of a weapon do we have here?
Massive. It's just such a safety blanket to know that, like, when he's kicking in his home stadium, and 2, that he can hit from 55. He has a career long of 56. So you have to get to roughly the 39-yard line every time. That's a great luxury to have.
Wonderful situation to have. Well, that's why I think that like special teams and stuff is going to be so huge, because like Tyler Morris brings it up to the 50. It's like, great, get a first down and we got points on this thing. Like it's going to be massive, and that's why also big plays, I think. So let's get into our keys of the game. I'm going to start right there. I think the number one key to this game, explosive plays, limiting theirs, having more than them. I don't think there'll be a lot of them in this game, both because Michigan's offense still finding its footing and because the Michigan defense is, well, the Michigan defense elite. So I'm going to say whoever can get 2-3 explosive plays, 30 yards or more, is going to be in a great position to win this game.
That's a great start. I will start with win the script battle. Knock Steve Sarkisian off his and let Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell get onto theirs and just kind of impose their will the way they do, stacking plays and layering everything. I mean, this is Steve Sarkisian, who can get a little bit tight in 1-score games. He was 3-2 last year, but 2-5 the year before. You want to make him sweat out there and come down and get off his play sheet and think on his feet.
Love that. All right, my next key to the game, limit opportunities for Quinn Ewers. That is going to mean sustained drive, something that we weren't too great at last week. There was the one that like we loved and we've already, talked about quite a bit, but we've got to do that a couple times. Long sustained drives, get this defense some rest, keep Quinn Ewers off the field, because he is a gunslinger, man. He's going to get out there, and with enough opportunities, he can pick you apart. So limit those with long drives that like just sap the will of this team.
That's a great point. Yeah, Quinn Ewers, I mean, we saw what he did last year at Alabama. Like, it took him some time to get in there, but started hitting some deep shots late in that game and gave Nick Saban his worst home loss in his tenure at Bama. That's not nothing. Next point for me is very simple. Win the turnover battle. Get it first. Get an extra possession, give the offense as many opportunities as it can to just drain the clock, keep the defense rested. The defense doesn't have the depth established as it did last year, so you're going to have their starters on the field more, so it's more important than ever to get them some rest. Let them sit on the sideline. Michigan was very slow at pace last year because it was intentional to keep their defense rested. I think that's even more important in this game. I'm talking 5, 6, 7, 8-minute drives at all possible. Drain the clock down, shorten the game, and set your defense up for success with an early turnover.
Yeah, if Michigan's out there keeping the ball for 8 minutes on drives, I'm going to feel amazing about our chances.
That's the recipe.
Yeah, I'm going to feel like that is the recipe 100%. I'm going to feel great about that if that's happening. Like similar, like a lot of these last three are kind of in the same vein. My next and last point will be win between the margins. That's the penalty battle. That's special teams. That is just like mistakes. Cologne Mullings, hit your blocks, check your clips, boys. So yeah, like just win between the margins, between the ears, fewer mistakes, fewer penalties, and execute, which seems like the easiest, most low-hanging fruit. But this is a playoff game, essentially. Yeah. So that's what needs to happen. Like, you need to be executing like it's end of the season in week 2.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. My last one is going to be run your trick play before they run theirs. Play callers always talk about that. Sharon Moore's big on it. You want to run yours before they do, and I think it's very smart to do it. You want to do it when you can, not when you have to. So you have the opportunity, so you're not waiting on it. Like, you think back to last year when Penn State ran the quarterback throwback pass to get like a 3rd and 2, and it's like, okay, they're out of ideas. They can't get any push. Now they have to do it. Do it when it's still just kind of a bonus and you can get something. So look for some kind of trick play to keep a drive going, to score early and just build that momentum for an offense that really needs some confidence and just an identity.
I like it. Like, get your girl flowers preemptively. If you wait until the day after your anniversary, what good is it done?
Yeah, my wife's birthday is tomorrow, and I got flowers being delivered in the AM tomorrow. I'm already a step ahead here.
Hell yeah, you're on it. Well, we know she's not watching this, so we're good.
No,
This is
no,
the
she's
surprise
downstairs.
is not work. Outstanding, man. Yeah, that's great. All right, let's get into players of the game and predictions for this one, man.
Players of the game, it's a big game. So I'm going with Donovan Edwards in this one. Shout out to a listener, Todd. He and I had a great email exchange talking about Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings and why I'm bullish on Edwards still, as so many people are jumping off. And great discussion with him. So shout out to Todd. I think this is going to be a big one for him. I think this is one where you see him reassert himself. I think you're going to see some rhythm. I really think you're going to see him impact this in the passing game, like having that check down and be that weapon out in space. This is the Michigan running back that holds the single game Michigan record for receiving yards by a running back. It's time to see that guy out there again and just getting Anthony Hill out in space and making a move here or there.
Love that. That's clearly the answer that I wanted to go to. For the sake of parity and to mix it up a little bit, I'll say whoever plays the center position. It was Dom Gadis last week. So that is just such a critical position, like making all the calls up there, the communication, 3rd and inches. Like, you have got to get your pad level low if we're doing that again. Like, this is a Michigan team that is like, if you had to describe them fundamentally, they want to be able to force their will upon you in short yardage situations. So to not get that 6 inches last week was alarming. So we've got to be better. It's got to start at the center position. So I think if the center, whoever it is, probably Gadis, has a good day, this Michigan offense is going to have a good day. What about on defense?
Defense, we talked about him at the top. I'm going with Josiah Stewart. You're going one-on-one against an All-American, a projected top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Josiah Stewart can make himself a lot of money in this game. We already saw what he did against J.C. Latham from Alabama last year in the Rose Bowl, and this is another step up for him, another chance. All eyes are going to be on that battle and what he can do. ESPN Draft Scout, Matt Miller was tweeting about it this week, how fascinating it is to see them. I really want to see how Banks handles his speed around the edge, and I also think people are going to be surprised at how powerful he is in a compact 6'1" frame.
Yeah, that's a great one. Really, just anyone on the defensive line is a wonderful choice for this one. So I like that you went with Josiah Stewart there. This thing will be won or lost there. Our defensive line versus their offensive line is appointment viewing. I'll go to the secondary. Stick with what I'm used to. I'll go with Jair Hill in this one. I think that the Quinn Ewers versus Will Johnson thing, I don't think they're going to try him like they were trying Will Johnson last week, particularly when he ended the game and sent him packing with the pick 6. I'm sure they're aware of that. I don't think that they're going to try and pick on him. So that means a lot of balls coming to Jair Hill. This is an offense that wants to be able to pass the ball, as you mentioned, versus the Alabama team last year, how they were able to get things going late. So I think late, like a key turnover late in this one, Jair Hill locking his man down. He's going to be on both Bond, Wingo. They'll be mixing it up. There's a lot of receivers. There's a lot of like good depth as far as pass catchers on this team. Their guys out of the backfield can all catch the ball. So I'll go with Jair Hill. Obviously, everyone, this is going to be all 11. Whatever unit is out there is going to need to be locked in for this one. So everybody's going to need to have a great game for this one. It's not quite a game where Michigan needs to play perfect, though. Like, that's kind of what we were saying about some past games where we were really underdogs, where like Michigan has to play perfect. I don't think it's quite there. Michigan has to play close to perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, this isn't 2021 Ohio State. Like, Texas is good, but I think some people are propping them up too much based on the results last week. But like, you have to keep context in mind here. Like, Colorado State is nowhere near a team to judge somebody off of moving forward. Texas is a very good team. But in this one, I think it's going to come down to a lot of factors we talked about: coaching, offense, execution. I liked your point about winning on the margins. Dom Zavada is going to be important in this one. Field position, just the small little cliche stuff you always hear is going to make the difference here. I've gone back and forth so many times. I believe before the year when we were doing our season predictions, I predicted a loss in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this team has to answer a lot of questions offensively, especially at the quarterback position, a lot more question marks than Texas has. But I think this game is 1st to 20. I think the Michigan defense is going to be able to pull them down into a fist fight, just make this game as ugly as possible. And I think the Michigan offense can do just enough to set up Dom Zavada to win the game 20-17.
I love it. I love it. This has been a tough one for me as well. I've gone back and forth. I have a pretty good idea of what I think the score is going to be, but trying to figure out like the cadence of it and what's going to happen. It's a coin flip, man. This is a very, very well matched pairing right here early in the season, the bluest of blue bloods. I'm super excited for it regardless. I picked it as a loss to start the season. I'm going to stick with that. I just think this is a 10-2 team. I think 11-1 is possible, but undefeated, it's just not that team without JJ, without some of those guys from last year. I'm going to predict the loss earlier in the season as they're still figuring things out. But I think Michigan's going to give them what for. I think this thing comes down to the last 4 minutes of the game. And I think Quinn Ewers does just enough, kind of like he was doing late in that Alabama game, to get it done. I'm going to go Texas 23, Michigan 17 in this one. Doesn't feel good to do it, but I think that this will set us up for some greater things down the road. I think we'll learn from this game. The fact that it's just so early in the season is kind of what it is for me. And like both teams have a massive jump going from Colorado State to Michigan, but also going from Fresno State to Texas. I do think Texas has the larger jump, though.
I agree. You and I discussed this on Tuesday, and I think so. I mean, going from Colorado State to Michigan compared to the Wolverines who are going from Fresno to Texas, like, I think it's nice they've already faced some adversity. I think I said the same thing in 2019 before the Wisconsin game too, though, and that didn't turn out so well. So I'm hoping it bodes well and leans towards my favor. But I see where you're going with this. It makes total sense. I mean, Michigan, I can't believe they dropped to 7.5-point dogs in a week.
That's
they were
too rich.
Yeah, I believe like before the game was over, the gap had closed to 2.5, so it changed 5 points. So that's just a massive swing of things. But no, man, fascinated to watch. We're going to know so much about this team, but also we're not going to know everything, because remember, Texas beat Alabama last year, and then the next week, Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe was benched for a lacrosse player, and then the team rallied together and got to the Rose Bowl and took Michigan to the cusp of losing. So we'll know a lot, but we won't know it all.
Yeah, wild times there. Shout out to Yankee Wolverine, who joined us, said Michigan by 30. Look,
that would be brother. We will pod with drinks in hand immediately after, live stream it. We're going to break some rules. People are going to be upset, but if they win by 30, I'm willing to break a few rules.
Look, if they win by 30, we're not potting afterwards, because I'm dead and I'm going to be floating up on a beach in Rangoon somewhere, my bloated corpse, because I'll have just gone absolutely insane. Yeah, I would go nuts. Can Michigan win? Yes. I don't think a blowout is really on the table for either side in this one, though. I don't think that's on the table.
I would welcome it.
Michigan. Yeah, Michigan blowing out Texas. Yeah, obviously. Yes, of course. If we get blown out the other way, well, then we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get there. But I don't see it happening. This is a great one, man. Noon on Saturday. I believe we got Klatt and Gus for the call, right?
Yes, we have Big Noon Kickoff is there for a special 3-hour show. College Game Days there. Michael Phelps is the guest picker. Will Ferrell's also randomly there for whatever reason. So you're gonna have Woodson, you're gonna have Desmond, dude. You're gonna Derek Jeter is the captain. I mean, this feels like I don't know, what is this, the ESPYs or something? Like, everyone's coming out for this.
Ridiculous. That was like an ad libs. It's like the Muppets are doing a halftime show, and Cher will be there.
I know Fran Drescher is doing the coin flip. It's like, what is she doing here?
Let's just go with it. Ignore it.
So yeah, man. I mean, all eyes are going to be on Ann Arbor this weekend.
Yeah, 100%, man. This will be great. I'll be going live as soon as that game wraps up with Michael Smeltzer from the Blue Wall. That'll be over on Bleacher Report, so you can catch that. Our podcast will be out next Tuesday. Rain, shine, and the creek don't rise. Looking forward to that. So we'll be with you for the rest of the season. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Tyler Turner, Yankee Wolverine. Appreciate y'all. Podcast version of this will be up later tonight. That is September 5th. I'm Jared. That's Andy. This is Amazing Brew 6-Pack. We'd like to remind you that wherever you go, go blue.